welcome in. Welcome back to another episode of the Format Podcast. Definitely got an interesting show for you here today. Man, Zion Williamson. But we'll get to that in a minute. But before we do, you already know what it is. If you haven't already and you're here on YouTube, please go ahead, make sure you click that subscribe, that like, and that notification bell so you're up to date whenever new episodes and new content drops. Definitely want to keep you in the loop when we do that. If you want the audio only version of the podcast, you know what to do. Open your audio podcast platform, hit the search bar, type in the Format Podcast, give us a search. We should come up. If you enjoy the content, please go ahead, give us that 5-star review and make sure you like it however you can on whatever platform you're listening to. Make sure you share the pod. If you know that there's other sports fans that would love to hear a kind of maybe differing and sometimes dissenting voice on the biggest sports stories of the day. And finally, just make sure you do those things for us. It helps us find more sports fans. It helps more sports fans find us. Really appreciate it. Definitely trying to grow the channel. And with that, let's get right to it. All right. So, as I mentioned right before the intro there, this episode is about Zion Williamson and a kind of very interesting story that came up here today. So, I was going through, looking, figuring out, what are we going to talk about here on the show today? Got lots of stories in the world of sports, but this one kind of caught my eye. And there's a couple of different outlooks on it, right? So you guys know, if you watch the channel, I'm 44 years old, so that means I come from, a bit of an older generation of NBA basketball, one where the league was more physical, where players were taking more of a pounding, but yet it was a badge of honor to play as many games as you possibly could. Now, some people would say that's stupid. Now you have better sports science and you have all these training staffs and whatnot advising on the benefits of quote unquote load management and keeping players out so that they will theoretically be healthy for an organization at the most important times of the season. But as you've seen, load management clearly doesn't work. We see that as an example with a guy like Paul George. And he said it himself. We see basically a lot of players in the modern NBA are not building up the callus and they seem to be injured more than ever. Now, we don't have definitive data on that, but it's probably my opinion that the NBA is never going to come out with definitive data on that because they don't want it out there that today's players are simply softer and that load management, their process that they've gone by is not working. But regardless of all that, Zion Williamson, this is a guy who number one pick in the draft 4 years ago, just an incredible player out of Duke. Very large man, about 6'6", 285 pounds, plays with tremendous explosiveness. He's averaged for his career some crazy numbers, right? He averages 26, just about 26 points a game, 25.8, 7 rebounds per game, 60% field goals. Now, that on its face is an incredible number. And quick note, for a guy who's as physically dominant as Zion is and can be, especially in a league where there's not a lot of dominant bigs, that's 7 rebounds per game. That's not good in my estimation. Like, he has to make a concerted effort when he is on the floor to get back on the glass because, Pat Riley said it years and years ago, and I get it. It's a different game now, but there are certain tenets that remain the same. And for me, one of them big ones is no rebounds, no rings. You got to hit the glass if you want to be effective, especially as a big. And if you want to win championships, got to rebound. Anyway, Zion Williamson, just an incredible player for a guy that size, super athletic, super explosive, attacks the rim with reckless abandon, just throws down mega dunks. And part of the reason that he became the star that he is already is because in high school, he went viral with a whole bunch of his incredible dunks on his Instagram feed. And we saw that in Duke. We saw that this is a guy that plays with just a tremendous amount of explosion, tremendous amount of torque, to the point that some people have said that they've never seen a player roughly at his size who plays with the amount of explosiveness and torque. And to that, I say recency bias rears its ugly head again, because just getting off track a little bit here. If you're old enough to remember Charles Barkley when he was young, the round mound of rebound, that guy was incredible. He grabs the board, takes it full court at full speed and throws it down, cocks it back with two hands and throws it down. He's probably the closest thing, or Zion is the closest thing to him in terms of a body type and that level of athleticism and explosiveness at that size. Anyway, Zion Williamson, why is this such a big deal? Because in his time in the NBA, he has had, I want to say, what do we got? 82 times 4 possible games he could have played in the regular season, 328. And he has only played 114 games. That's 34%. Just over 1 in every 3 games he's played. What does that say to you? A tremendous amount of injury history, right? His rookie year, he played 24 games. His second year, that was his best year. He played 61 games, okay? And his third year, he did not play at all. And this past season, only 29 games. So this is problematic, especially for the fact that for whatever odd reason, the New Orleans Pelicans saw fit to pay him and give him a $250 million contract. Totally lost on me. He would have had to prove for a couple of years that he was able to stay healthy and stay on the court before I pay a guy that type of guaranteed money. It just doesn't make sense to me. So we've got a guy like Zion Williamson, just, again, a tremendous player. So not trying to take shots at him, but he cannot stay healthy. Now, is this a function of load management? Is this a function of his body type? Is he just snake bitten in terms of the injury? Clearly, he's injury prone. But what's interesting today, he was being discussed on Undisputed with Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharp on Fox Sports 1. And Skip, now let's remember, Skip says a lot of crazy things, and a lot of people may think he's a shock jock, but Skip is actually a longtime print journalist. So he's got connections in the sports world, and he knows what it is to actually have to adhere to journalistic integrity. And so Skip actually had some interesting thoughts on Zion Williamson. Let's go ahead and listen to those, and then we'll come back and discuss it.
From what I've heard, the Pelican team doctors have cleared Zion to play in these playoff games, starting with this play-in game.
Okay.
But Zion's independent team of medical people say he's only 99%, and they don't want to completely clear him until he's 100% ready to go. So team management is increasingly at odds with Zion's stepfather, who's sort of running the show for the Zion camp. And they just believe that the stepfather, with the advice of the medical people on their side, all holding Zion back from playing. The stepfather is increasingly unhappy with the team because it continues to exercise the clause in his contract that on a monthly basis they can weigh him. I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
But again, they're increasingly unhappy in this day and age. You know how that goes.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Why they put that clause in there?
you know why. Okay. The Pelican players, I've been told, are not happy with Zion in particular because they're fearing that he's getting the wrong advice as a very young player, that it's messing with his mind. Mm-hmm. And they think he should just suck it up and stand up to both stepfather and his medical people and just say, no, I feel great. I'm going to go ahead and play.
Right.
Because that's what you do at this time of the year, right?
Now, this is really interesting situation for me. Number one, I would be interested to know, what type of information, where Skip is getting this from. But if he's saying it, hopefully he's got a connection within the Pelicans organization that's actually viable here, and that he can count on. Because I would assume so. Again, he's a longtime print journalist. He's an award winner. He's written books, so he knows what it is to have sources and to vet sources. So if he's coming on the air and saying this, then I would hope and I would assume that what he's saying is legitimate. Now, some of this stuff I think is really interesting. The fact that he's saying that Zion Williamson's stepfather and his management team and his independent medical people are what's holding him back from coming back to play. He's at 99%, but they don't want to let him play until he's 100%. If this is true, Zion, number one, you're your own man, okay? You're a grown man now. You're the one signing the checks. Number two, Zion, where is your competitive fire to get out there with your teammates and go to proverbial war, right? To help these guys. They're in the play-in game and they need you, okay? Number three, Zion's stepfather, why would he not be happy with the Pelicans? The Pelicans gave your son $250 million when, if we're being honest here, he hasn't earned it. When he's been on the court, he scored a lot of points. But again, he's only played roughly 1 in 3 games since being drafted into the NBA. That's just not good enough for a guy that you're paying that type of money. So you better, if you're Zion's stepfather, you better deal with whatever's, coming out of there. Okay. According to Skip, as we heard, Zion's stepfather isn't happy with the Pelicans because they keep saying they can waive Zion every month if it's in their best interest. Now, that would be interesting. I guess that contract has specific language in it towards the medical and whether or not he can play. So they could maybe waive him and get out from under that without taking too vicious a hit on the salary cap. That would be very interesting. I don't know, man. I don't know. Again, I would not have paid him, but again, if the Pelicans were smart enough to include language in there that refers to his ability to play and his health, then so be it. But if you need to and you can, and you don't get too badly burned by this upcoming season, if Zion doesn't show you something real in terms of being on the floor the majority of the time, you got to get rid of that guy. You have to. He is explosive. He is outstanding. He does put fans' butts in the seats. But at the end of the day, the Pelicans are not a bad team without him. They'd probably be better with him. But here's the question, though. What does he really add? He adds 26 points a game. But clearly, they're close enough to making the playoffs without that. He doesn't really defend. He doesn't hit the glass. He gives you some highlights and scores some points. Well, a lot of dudes in the league give you some highlights and score some points. So I don't know, man. I really don't know. This is tough. And here's the other question. Do you try to trade him? And if you do, what are you going to be able to get on the block for a guy who we know and has demonstrated that he is absolutely injury prone? And another quick question. If it's true what Skip is saying, that his independent medical team has him at 99% and doesn't want to put him out there till he's 100%, and he doesn't want to play until he feels he's at his maximum capability, which I guess is his right, how much of this is kind of the Kawhi Leonard syndrome? Now, we heard for years that Kawhi Leonard was a guy that was not willing to go out there and quote unquote sacrifice his body unless he was sure that he was 100% and he could go. Now, I don't know how much of that is true or how much of that is just kind of what we've heard, but how much of that is the Kawhi Leonard syndrome, and has that affected Zion Williamson in terms of his willingness to play? I mean, back in the day, I know, back in my day, right? But in all seriousness, back in the day when I was coming up and I was watching the game, granted, the money wasn't where it is now, but still, guys were making pretty good money, but it was a badge of honor to play as many games as possible, and guys knew that you got to get out there. There was that sense of wanting to be out there, wanting to battle with your teammates, wanting to compete. And I say it so often, I'm really not sure that is existent in today's modern player for the most part. So anyway, what I'd like to know from you, what do you think about Zion? Do you think this report from Skip is real? Do you think that he lacks competitive fire? Do you think he's injury prone? Should the Pelicans try to get out from under his contract? Leave those comments in the comment section. Can't wait to hear from you. I'll be back with the next episode, and I'm out. Peace.